in the shortest non-ADHD way that you can dream of.
Right, okay.
Who are you?
There's a challenge.
I'm probably the most famous person that you've never heard of.
Now you went, as one of the person who masks his behaviour, you went to be in The Masked Singer.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
How did that go?
I'll do 10 things in a day and I'll do 9 of them really well.
Yeah.
I'll do one thing that I'm not happy with.
And you fixated on the one thing that...
And I will churn on that and I'll fester on that and I'll beat myself up over it.
Most people who are neurotypical will do 5 things really well and not get anything wrong. Or would you rather be doing 5 things well and not getting anything wrong, or do 9 and do 1 not so well? I know who I'd rather be associated with. That's the person who does 9. It's about optics, isn't it?
You know, the way I deal with when I'm going to do talks in schools, I give the children and teachers and things a metaphor, which is, I want you to imagine a tornado. What does a tornado do? And I ask them, and they tell me, tornadoes causes damage, it causes chaos. Well, that's what ADHD is. It's a whirlwind, and you get lost inside the middle of it. And unless you can get that under control, it's going to follow you everywhere you go.
Ryan Swain, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I love the fact that you've been so keen to do this. Right, this has been, you've chased me. You really wanted to be here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I feel any platform that we can get on to talk about neurodiversity and ADHD in particular, I'm going to use that and utilize that. So yeah, absolutely, yeah.
No, well, welcome.
Thank you.
So there's going to be a group of people tuning into this TV programme.
Yeah.
In the shortest non-ADHD way that you can dream of.
Right, okay.
Who are you?
There's a challenge.
Oh, I'm probably the most famous person that you've never heard of. No, I do lots of different things. You mentioned ADHD there. In true ADHD fashion, I've probably got a very diverse belt of accolades.
Give me some examples.
I'm a host, a DJ. I love music. I do motivational talks about neurodiversity, ADHD, Tourette's syndrome. I'm a skateboarder.
You have to mention the Grinch.
And of course, yes, I am a Grinch tribute, but yeah, that's very modest. I think I am probably one of the best Grinch tributes in the country right now. So
that's a rather narrow band of people. What's a Grinch tribute?
So basically, I authentically portray Jim Carrey's Grinch character from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas around this time of year. So
I saw some socials yesterday of you on ice skates.
Yeah, of course.
Looking very accomplished on your ice skates.
We put him into real life situations, so and it makes it even more hilarious, I think. So
there is a Jim Carrey-ness about you, isn't there?
With a beard.
Yes.
A hairy Jim Carrey. He has hair on his head, I have it on my face.
So just sticking with that theme, what's your biggest success in your professional life then?
That's a very good question. Now, I've been very lucky and fortunate enough in my career to host some huge events, festivals, play some huge gigs, but none of that really matters. I'm not really, well, it does matter obviously, but I'm not fixated on that. Mm-hmm. The most fundamental thing in my career, the most important thing in my career is all the work that I do around neurodiversity, ADHD, inspiring the younger generation and being a good role model to young people. And I do that through 2 different ways. So I go into the education system. I do real life talks from lived experiences about ADHD, trying to make young people aware of not just what ADHD is, but what it could look like in other people around them, like the family members and the friends and things. And I also teach skateboarding as well. And I set up a skate school 3 years ago, and it's probably one of the best things that I've ever done. You know, I've worked with thousands of young people, and that's powerful.
Where's that?
That's in Malton in North Yorkshire.
Back at home?
Yeah.
One last question from me is, how ADHD are you?
I am ADHD, yeah. I'm ADHD, yeah. All 4 letters, yeah.
When were you diagnosed? So that hyperactivity, that kid that can't sit still, I can only imagine what you were like at school.
Absolutely.
And I'll take you through that journey.
My diagnosis came quite late, 21. I was diagnosed in adult life. My adolescence and my infancy was incredibly tough. My mum has always been very open-minded about mental health. neurodivergence and things. But back in the early 90s, there wasn't the resources or the information that there is now to be able to understand it and comprehend it fully. So I went through school undiagnosed, and dare I say it was hell. You know, it was not just hell for me, but it was awful for everybody around it, my friends and my family included in that.
Can you elaborate? Because I'm interested to know that I can identify as someone that struggles to sit still. And if I'm not fulfilled, if I'm not interested in what I'm learning, and you know, Bunsen burners and algebra didn't excite me, I got into trouble. And actually, as an older, a teenager in school, I skipped lessons because I was actually quite literally trying to avoid it. So what sort of trouble and what was your experience you had at school?
To be honest, I didn't want to go to school. One, because I didn't really fit in with the sort of academicness of it all, or I didn't think I did, because I was told that I wasn't like that. Do you know what I mean? I was told differently. Basically, it didn't matter how hard I tried to sit still, to try and concentrate, to deliver the expectations, what the education system has of you. It was never good enough. So I always felt like, you know, I'm trying my best here and nobody's helping me, or nobody's seeing that I'm trying. And it's one of them situations, I think, where you're told something, if you're told it enough, you start to believe it. And I believed that I was not good enough to be at school.
So was your self-esteem quite low at school?
Yeah, it was very low. But the thing is, I've always had a lot of natural confidence, you know, and I feel like energy and confidence, people kind of, it's like a magnet, isn't it? It attracts people, it attracts attention. And I think it's always been very misunderstood as my confidence, because I always describe myself as a very introverted extrovert. On the outside, I look very extroverted, but on the inside, I'm very introverted and very shy person, really.
It's interesting you say that, because I talk about confidence is what other people see in you.
Yeah, of course.
And your self-belief is what's inside you.
Absolutely.
And we talk about masking.
Masking, yeah.
But if you're masking, I suggest you're masking at that time how insecure you felt about yourself, and then projecting the natural confidence and energy that you had gets you through that to some degree, perhaps.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I'm sat here now when I've got my own coping mechanisms of how I deal with my Tourette's and deal with my energy, because it wants to be let out in any way it can. You know, I can't sit still, can't stand still. If you ever come to any of my concerts or shows, I'm more controlled now at 35, but in my younger years, I used to sort of pace up and down the stage backwards and forwards and make the whole audience feel seasick. Do you know what I mean? And I always say, if you've got motion sickness, I'm probably not the right person to be around. Do you know what I mean? But I've tried my best to harness, you know, and accept and control who I am. And I feel like the message that we need to get across to people is, you shouldn't mask anything, you know, just let out who you really are. And if people can't accept that, then that's their issue, isn't it?
With school, just quickly on school, you were super vulnerable at that point.
Vulnerable, that's a good word.
With that confidence that you had in yourself and how other people saw you, there is an element of what could have led to bullying and that sort of almost sort of misunderstanding amongst young kids in particular, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone that is in any way different and sort of treated differently from a tribal point of view almost. And I love the fact that, dare I say, that was countered by the fact that you were probably loved at school, probably very popular, which could have gone a different way. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, totally with you. Yeah, I would never say I was bullied. People used to tease me for my sort of, you know, disadvantages, shall we say, but I was never really bullied, and I was never accepted either, if that makes sense. So people used to take me under their wing and accommodate me. They used to like having me around, one, because I was a bit of a class clown, a humorous kind of figure, big energy, used to make people feel good about themselves, and I never used to judge anybody, you know.
That's quite infectious.
But yeah, they were judging me, obviously, and people do judge me everywhere I go, but I've never judged anybody. And I feel like that's why I can walk into rooms and things like we're doing now, and I can just get along with anybody, because I don't really judge anybody. There's no point in that judgment. When you've lived with that judgment for 35 years, since you were born practically, then, you know, it gets thrown out the window, in my opinion.
There's an isolation point there, which is coming to the fact that you got diagnosed at 21.
Yeah.
I imagine you felt really quite lost at times. You were sort of, there was a an element of not quite knowing where you fit in. When you got the diagnosis and you're able to make a lot of sense and build in coping mechanisms and understand behaviour, did that give you a certain amount of reflection on behaviour, but also being able to manage moving forward?
Yes, hugely. For me personally, it was everything that we already knew, especially my family and my mum. My mum, who's probably my biggest supporter, as well as my fiancée, Sam. It's what we already knew. However, it was a massive weight off my shoulders because for so long I believed that all the things, the impulsivity, the not being able to concentrate, the not being able to focus, the excessive talking, the fidgeting, the reckless behaviour sometimes, I wouldn't say it made an excuse for that, but it made sense, you know.
Understanding.
I comprehended as to why these things have played a part, as to why I am like I am. And it really did help, but it also hindered me at the same time. And I've always said, you know, as a youngster even, that went undiagnosed, but was aware of what ADHD is. I've always said if it isn't dealt with correctly, it can be, you know, it can be damaging. It can be a killer almost if it isn't harnessed correctly.
It can lead to other mental health issues.
And the longer that continues into your adult life, it causes chaos. You know, the way I deal with when I'm going to do talks in schools, I give the children and teachers and things a metaphor, which is, I want you to imagine a tornado. What does a tornado do? And I ask them, and they tell me, tornadoes causes damage, it causes chaos. Well, that's what ADHD is. It's a whirlwind, and you get lost inside the middle of it. And everywhere you go, it's causing damage and chaos. And unless you can get that under control, it's going to follow you everywhere you go. And it has for me. And I'm not going to lie, you know, I try and see the positives in it, but I want to talk about some of the negatives as well that people don't always see. And it's damaged me and it's damaged my life. And, you know, I have to live with that.
You're incredibly, I don't know how well you did at school, but you're incredibly articulate.
Thanks.
No, I want you to hear that. You are.
Yeah, that means a lot.
Incredibly articulate about what you want to achieve and your own personal journey. And I would suggest that school clearly didn't bring out the best in you, because here you sit in front of me. I'm astounded how articulate you are. It's amazing.
Thanks very much.
And that's a very deliberate positive stroke halfway through this interview, because you've gone into some very emotional places there for a second, and you don't need to doubt yourself.
No, cheers.
You talk about masking. There's an irony, from what I know about you, that you're also a very creative person, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
And skilled vocally. And now you went as one of the person who masks his behaviour. You went to being the Masked Singer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How did that go?
Well, it's not just that program, but I've done quite a few green screen testing, pilots, whatnot for television presenting, because people know me as a presenter, and I do a lot of comparing, hosting, you know, that kind of thing at live events, festivals across the country, functions and whatnot. And in the past, I've done auditions and I've done pilots, and I've had the audience, captured the audience, quick wit, you know, like I say, I'm quite good at speaking and things, and I can express myself and engage the audience. However, what I'm not good at doing is listening to instructions and following instructions and standing on cue points and things when it comes to a studio environment. So for programs like that, I've done auditions where I've been told to stand in fixated positions. The camera's trying to follow me and I'm moving around, and it's chaos. The energy's great live. It looks wonderful live, but recorded, it's hard to follow me everywhere I'm going. And I've sat back and reflected on that, and I think if only I could have just stood still, I could have had that show, I could have done that, or I could have done this in my career. And you know what? There's still judgment there. And I accept that's the industry I'm in. I accept that there will always be judgment. However, I think it needs to be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to people's authenticity and
that's
unique qualities.
That's the word.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
Me,
You'd have had to mask as the Masked Singer to fit in.
Because otherwise I'm just like any other generic presenter.
Absolutely. But aren't we craving this? So you talk about the articulation, which I totally agree, but I was going to bring up the word authenticity and the fact that there's so much strength in your vulnerability. And the fact that we're all craving authenticity, especially in the world of AI now. And
it's bad.
yeah, and in what has been quite a polished world of media, to the point where a lot of social stuff now, where it's the bits that are done to camera, people just saying, I just had this and this is how I feel, and then that blows up rather than the polished conversation. And so I would have thought, and that was a big draw for us to want to talk to you today, that actually you just being raw, authentic, and being you, and going back to the work you do in the schools. This is what I wanted to say. I wanted to know if you get any outpouring from kids, because I remember people that came into my school and did a talk at the front of the sort of class, what have you, and sometimes they might have climbed a mountain or done something, but it was all a bit kind of cliche and so on.
Sure.
But for you to be able to go in with your neurodivergent kind of story, coping mechanisms and being you, has that drawn out kids that have almost back to that role model element and given you that kind of validation for what you do and saying, I can feel like I can be myself now, or giving them a chance to remove their own masks?
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope you have had that.
I have had that, yeah. Do you know what the thing is with this You, Me and ADHD campaign that I'm doing, right? It started off me reaching out to like yourself, few people, few platforms, and then it snowballs. I do it all voluntary, so I don't charge any money. People have offered me money, councils have offered me money to go and do keynotes, speeches and things. I'm not interested in money. Money doesn't interest me in that when it comes to neurodiversity, because this thing has hindered my life and it has caused me a lot of life, not just me, but the people around me, a lot of grief, okay? So if I can go into a room and at any age, not just inspire, but try and help somebody to prevent that from happening to them, then I'm going to do it all day long. Do you know what I mean? So it's a no-brainer. But it's, after I'd done the You, Me and ADHD talks in ADHD Awareness Month last month, in October, I sat in the bath, put my head in my hands and sobbed uncontrollably, because everything that I was doing, I was talking raw, from the heart, real life experiences. I'm not going in with presentation, with statistics and all the usual cliche stuff. I was talking through real lived experiences, raw and real. And young people like that. I don't think we often give young people credit for understanding and comprehending things. They understand a lot more than what we think they do, and they feel a lot more than what we think they do. And it resonated a lot with a lot of young people.
So what was in when you were sat in the bath?
Yeah.
And you'd gone through all of those emotional experiences, presumably. Yeah. What was it that caught you at that moment in the bath then?
There was a few things. I'd reached out to, not in an egotistical way, but I'd reached out to various media outlets to try and help with the campaign, just to try and get the voice heard of what we're doing, so we could get into more schools and colleges, community hubs, etc. And a really lovely lady called Hannah from the Press Association, PA Media it's called, got in touch. And she was like, I'm really touched with your story. I really, really want to help you. I think we could write something up. We could get this out there. We could really do something big with it. She did. And to her credit, she wrote a lovely piece, a wonderful piece. It wasn't exploiting me or the label or anything like that. Because normally the media are fixated on bad press, ADHD. And she was really disheartened, as I was, because no one would touch it. She put it out to all these various sources. No one would touch it. No one put it out. And it was really sad and deflating, because the potential of what could have been, it's not just about me. It's not just about the journey. It's about networking, working with other like-minded people to do something bigger and better down the line.
So the feeling of disappointment and rejection. I was going to come, that disappointment becomes rejection. And no matter how successful you've been on those stages through ADHD Awareness Month, there came that rejection. And again, we bring to life rejection sensitivity for somebody with ADHD. That's right,
exactly that.
No matter how much success you just had, and success being measured by your own feeling of, I've nailed this, I've done good, I've done right. The very next thing that happens is nobody picks up on the back of that, and you're back to sobbing in your hands, in the bath, feeling very rejected.
Exactly that.
And that's tragedy, isn't it? How do you cope with that rejection? And what was your cope with? Apart from having a hot, bubbly bath, what What was how did you pull yourself through that then?
It's always been it's like a pendulum almost, like, do you know what I mean? It's a weight that I'm probably never going to lift. And it affects everything that I do, you know? It's not just my talks, it's not just my work. It affects my relationships, my friendship, everything that I do. I'm my own worst enemy. And I feel like a lot of ADHDers feel that way. We're our own worst enemy. We sit and critique everything that we do. It's never good enough. Even when we're doing something really well, we always go away feeling we could have done better. Me personally speaking, from my own personal experiences, I've lost count how many times that's happened in my life. And as I've got older, I wouldn't say it's got easier, but I've become a little bit more relaxed with it, because you've got to understand that nothing is perfect, perfectly imperfect. But I think I put a lot of pressure on myself. Yeah. And I think a lot of ADHD people put serious amounts of pressure on themselves to deliver something that they might never be able to deliver realistically. And like I say, it's all about acceptance.
And is that driven, do you think, by that inner lack of confidence that drives you to be better, to be better, to be better?
Absolutely.
Because you've had a lifetime of not being good enough?
That's a great point. And yeah, I feel like if school... not blaming school, could sit here blaming people, why didn't this happen for me?
But you're allowed to reflect.
Yeah, I'm allowed to reflect, yeah. So if things had been different through my adolescence and maybe got diagnosed and trialed some different medication or maybe looked at different techniques, coping mechanisms, etc., then my life might have panned out differently. I'm not going to complain about how my life is, because I've got a wonderful life. I've got 4 beautiful children. I've got a fiance who's probably more supportive than my own mum at times. Do you know what I mean? My mum's amazing. Great little family network. My career's doing okay. I'm doing all right. I'm getting by. But things could have been different.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could have gone on maybe and done some even bigger and better things. But I'm not going to dwell on that. Like you say, it's finding that resilience, that sort of drive inside, that determination to want to be a bigger and better person.
I love that. There's a lot that resonates with me, actually.
Yeah, really.
And you identified it. It's the inner.
I think me and you are very similar.
I agree.
People.
Listening to this, the sort of the challenge of self-belief, but an overriding confidence.
Yeah.
But it's a war. And so I'll do 10 things. I've said this to you before, but I'll do 10 things in a day, and I'll do 9 of them really well. Yeah. I'll do one thing that I'm not happy with.
And you fixated on the one thing that...
And I will churn on that, and I'll fester on that, and I'll beat myself up over it. And there's another voice saying, come on, look at what else you've done.
And then I've got all these people around you saying, wow, look at what you've achieved.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so true.
I think it's really important.
But then that's misunderstood as well, because people think that you're ungrateful or, you know, you're not satisfied. And that's not strictly true. I just feel like if you're going to do something, me personally, I want to do it right.
Yeah. Why should you be satisfied? Why should you be satisfied if it's not right for you?
Exactly.
You don't need to be, because it'll be not being satisfied, which we can look back and think, oh, that's a challenge, that's a stress point, that's a disability, that you're never going to be happy. Or that's what drives us to the next piece of success.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes you who you are.
Absolutely.
You talk about 9 things doing really well, 1 not so well. Well, you've done 9 things really well. Most people who are neurotypical will do 5 things really well and not get anything wrong. Well, would you rather be doing 5 things well and not getting anything wrong, or do 9 and do 1 not so well? I know who I'd rather be associated with. That's the person who does 9.
Yeah,
and what have you. And it's about optics, isn't it? And it's about changing the narrative. And we talk about the entrepreneurs and the book in the entrepreneurs. You're an entrepreneur. You are doing so many things. You are constantly recreating what it is you can do next. And you're the only person I know who can imitate the Grinch on ice and see that as a really positive thing. You know, I have not met anybody who would even dream of doing that. But yet everybody, presumably mainly for kids, who see that and do that, and you're going to bring joy into people. You are bringing joy into people's lives. And you should never lose sight of that. And you should never just dwell on the one, because, you know, I hang around you and hang onto your coattails with pride, because you're out there doing it. You're out there doing it. I want to talk about 2 things, if I can. Okay. One is, when you talked about school and you mentioned vulnerability, you went, yeah, that's the word, vulnerable.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've professionally dealt with over the whole of my career as a policeman for 27 years, that vulnerability got them into proper trouble.
Yeah, serious trouble.
Now, did you have the opportunity, but that's the wrong way of framing the question. Were there times when real trouble presented itself to you through that vulnerability?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. That's touched me a bit. I do feel quite emotional at the minute. So just give me a second, sorry. Yeah, the vulnerability is still there in some respects. It's never gone away.
What touched you then?
What touched me was the fact that probably as a youngster, I was getting into, well, I know right from wrong. I'm a firm believer that people know right from wrong, okay? And I felt like some of the things that these so-called friends and people that I was associating myself with weren't doing the right thing, shall we say. And it got to a point where I didn't really want to be a part of it. So I made my voice heard, and that confidence and impulsivity came out, and the people that were surrounding themselves around me didn't like it, and it ended quite violently and things. And that was a bit of a turning point. Another turning point was when I got permanently excluded and expelled from school. And I don't often publicly talk about this, and I'm not proud of it, but I hit a teacher, and I'm not a violent person whatsoever. But as you know, ADHD people, some of them have a very short fuse, and when they're pushed and backed into corners, the impulsivity, you act on impulse, and that's what I did. I acted on impulse, and I was defending somebody who was getting bullied, as you mentioned earlier on in the talk, and I thought I was doing the right thing, standing up for them, and these people turned on me, and I got into a fight, and the fight resulted in a teacher trying to break it up, and I threw the punch at the wrong time and paid the consequences, shall we say, which got me kicked out of school permanently.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
No, it's fine, and that's a very open and transparent, honest answer there, which I don't often talk about. So nobody wants to be like, oh yeah, do you know what I mean? Not when you've got a career and things.
But there's you sat in front of me, the bouncy person, the happy, smiley person.
Yeah.
Knowing that there was the harder times lie behind that, I think it's really important for people to see that you come through those harder times. You look back on that, you're not proud of those days.
No, absolutely.
And it's not as if you've sat there and tried to justify that either. You've said, I was wrong, I did things wrong, and what have you. And you should be very proud of that reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what makes you want to help other people and get other people through the position. We have to change the systems, don't we?
Yeah, I think people need to self-reflect more.
Yeah.
And I've never used ADHD as an excuse,
Can tell.
A lot of people do use it as an excuse. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. But me personally, being told that I was bad, I was naughty, I wasn't good enough for many, many years at school, through the education system. I think the education system needs to sit up and understand that ADHD is a neurobiological condition. It's not bad parenting, bad poor diet, it's not a choice, and not everybody learns the same. And I think if we, like you say, just tailored that authenticity and tried to just accept people for what they are rather than what they could be, then
one size does not fit all.
It would open a lot more doors for people rather than lock them and throw away the key, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean?
So success is measured in many, many different ways.
Yeah.
And we all measure success differently. I sit in front of you and I look at you, and you've said it could have been different, it could have been better, it could have been. But I also sit in front of you and look at you, and I think deep down, Ryan, you are successful. You've got 4 great kids. If you don't say you're incredibly proud of.
Absolutely.
You've got a very varied career that is playing to your strengths. Now do you see that you are successful?
Yes. In my personal life couldn't be any better. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel loved, I feel wanted, I feel needed. For many years I strive for that. And it's in previous years as a youngster, having relationships and things, my ADHD has caused a lot of problems in that. I remember going to one particular partner's house to meet their parents years ago, and they'd cooked a dinner and things. It was very formal, sat at the table, and I was, wasn't as controlled, or I didn't have the coping mechanisms that I have now. Got sat at the table and my knees jerking under the table. It's rocking everywhere. There's water getting spilt. It's like there's an earthquake. And I remember her mother turning to her, and I remember hearing it saying, "This guy, all right? Is he on drugs? Does he take drugs? Because he can't sit still. And he talks lots." And I've had that my entire life, being judged as someone who takes recreational drugs or amphetamines for my energy and the way I think and feel and stuff. Never touched a drug in my life. Medicine doesn't work for me. It's never worked for me. The more natural remedies, coping mechanisms and things, talking therapy has been my saviour, I think.
Let me judge you.
Yeah.
I think you're amazing.
Well, cheers.
I think you're amazing, and I think you've so much more to offer, built on the success that you've got to today.
Thank you.
This has been an incredibly informative, passionate, and at times emotional meeting of minds, not an interview.
And the word role model was mentioned. That is how I see. If you came into a school, for me as a youngster, you would have actually changed my whole perception. You've actually done that now for me as an adult, and even though I can resonate and relate to you, there's even things you said that make me reflect with perspective and learn.
That's kind. Yeah, thank you.
No, I mean it. Heartfelt.
I
love this conversation.
Great conversation. Thank you.
And if like you said there rightly, I think if I had somebody that I could have looked up to like that, it would have just took the pain away a bit.
But that's why you're doing it.
Yeah,
you've got such a purpose, probably more than anyone we've ever met. There's a purpose there to try and stop any other kids going through that journey, and that actually makes, in some way, the journey you have been on, you wish could have been different. Actually,
of course, because I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of millions of young people.
You are,
and not just millions of young people, but their families and parents as well.
Yes,
because they're suffering in this.
Every pebble that goes in the pond, the ripples are huge, aren't they?
Yeah, of course. And it does. I mean, it's affected the amount of trouble that I brought to my mum and dad's door, unintentionally, but it's happened. I still feel guilty now at 35 for that,
Well, you made time, and I know that this was fitting in a schedule which gets busy for you at Christmas.
Yeah. I mean,
so I know you made the time to come to
I would always make the time to do this. So.
Heartfelt thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And I bet you bring a lot of pride to that door now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and hand on that. They should be the last words, not what you brought years ago.
No,
now.
Yeah, not living in the past. We move forward.
We will be talking about you for a long time.
Do you drive?
Yeah, I drive, yeah.
Right.
I just didn't fancy driving to London
no,
today.
You can't say blame me. So when you're in your car, take this away. The rear view mirror is that big.
Yeah.
The windscreen, which points forwards, is that big.
That's a nice way of looking at things,
Don't look back, it's only a small piece of glass. Look forward at the windscreen, it's huge.
Yeah,
you've got a lot of good things going to happen with you, I'm sure.
Well, that's really kind. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.